Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. A 2-year-old toddler was found dead in the rubble after a Russian drone and missile attack on Kyiv, bringing the death toll to 28, including 3 children. Over 150 people were wounded, with the attack involving more than 300 drones and 8 missiles. President Donald Trump's tariff deadline has passed, setting a 35% rate on Canada and 25% on India, with tariffs rising from the 10% date baseline. Asia shares fall while Mexico gets a 90-day extension and copper and de minimis imports face changes. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Gaza to visit food distribution sites aided by the Israeli military as part of efforts to deliver more food to the region. The UN reports at least 1,373 Palestinians have died whilst trying to access aid since May. Flooding triggered by heavy rain in Vietnam's Bien Dien province has left at least 14 people dead or missing. Flash floods and mudslides inundated houses after hours of heavy rain on Thursday night. Heathrow Airport has unveiled a £49 billion with Israel. The State Department will deny visas to those targeted without naming specific individuals. Now, our top story today, US President Donald Trump has imposed a broad set of new tariffs on exports from dozens of trading partners, significantly escalating trade tensions just ahead of today's deal deadline. While most nations face higher tariffs, Australia was spared from the worst of the hikes. Trump maintained a minimum 10% tariff on Australian products, prompting Australian Trade Minister Don Farrell to note that the decision could make Australian exports more competitive in the US market. Here's what the Australian Trade Minister had to say.
He confirmed that the tariff on Australian goods into the United States would remain at 10%, and that there would be no increase in the rate. He did indicate that there had been some pressure in the American system for an increase, but that President Trump had decided to maintain that 10%. I think this is a vindication for the Albanese government, and particularly the Prime Minister, in the cool and calm way that we have conducted diplomacy with the United States. What this decision means, in conjunction with all of the other changes to other countries, is that Australian products are now more competitive into the American market.
Meanwhile, South Africa, facing a new 30% tariff, has warned that the decision could cost tens of thousands of jobs. In a statement, the South African presidency said it continues to engage the US government to negotiate more on reciprocal tariffs. Meanwhile, Norway's Trade Minister, Silje Marseth, has emphasised her government's intent to finalise a trade agreement with the United States, despite the new barriers. We're now joined by Peter Cardillo, who's a chief market economist at Spartan Capital Securities. He joins us live from New York. Peter, thank you very much for joining us as always. Peter, what are your thoughts about today's announcement? Now the deadline has passed to negotiate a trade deal, with most tariffs being imposed on the 7th of this new month. How do you think this is going to shake up global trade tensions?
Well, I think it'll shake it up to the point where it'll probably bring negotiations back to the table, and lower tariffs can be set. I think this is, a way that Trump and a concern, and we see that with the markets today. Most markets are lower. The United States is expected to open up lower despite real good, strong earnings from many companies. And so it's, a tactic that will probably result in lower tariffs going forward.
Peter, there's obviously a lot of countries, a lot of numbers to look at, a lot of percentage points. However, who do you think has got the best deal here, or maybe the best out of a bad deal? Is it the United States, or is it someone like Cambodia, for example, who were previously facing a 49% tariff and have now managed to whittle it down to 19%? What are your thoughts, Peter?
Well, at the moment, the United States has the best deal, because if they trade with us, obviously, that means the Treasury is going to collect a heck of a lot more money than they would at 10 or 5%. So countries that are paying 30 and 35 and 40 are going to be paying more on tariffs, which isn't basically a tax. So that means more money comes into the United States Treasury, and from that perspective, it's better for the United States. On the flip side of the coin is that perhaps some of the trading partners, not all, but some, could reverse and find other trading partners. And then, of course, from that perspective, then we are the losers. But in general, it's quite difficult for many countries to seek other trading partners in the interim without crippling their exports. So I think it's, as I said before, a tactic to bring everyone to the table. And I believe that, right now, the countries that have the best deal, probably Great Britain, the EU, and of course some of the other smaller countries that have negotiated trade deals that are only paying as much as 15 or 20%. But others, of course, are going to suffer in the interim. But I think that should resolve in a positive way.
Peter, there's a particular outlier here, and that being Brazil, whose tariff of 50% comes into force today. The United States has cited political instability and legal actions against former President Jair Bolsonaro for reasons for this increased tariff. However, Brazil is another reason why Brazil is an outlier, is it actually has a trade surplus with the United States, which is in contrast to the other countries who don't. What is your thoughts on how that country is going to react to this, and what actions do you think that they could possibly take, and how is it going to affect US and Brazilian trade?
Well, obviously, their reaction is going to be one of despair, negative, obviously. 50% is a lot, and so no one is going to be happy. The Brazilians are not going to be happy with that. Will they retaliate? There's a good chance that they could. But again, I think it brings them to the table. So it's painful until they negotiate a deal at lower tariffs.
Yes, Peter, thank you. Do stay with us. We now move on to more tariff news, where European Commission Chief Markos Šefčovič has welcomed the early outcomes of the EU-US trade deal and said that EU exporters now benefit from a more competitive position under the trade deal. He emphasized the agreement reinforces stability for businesses and trust in the transatlantic economy. According to the EU's trade chief, the new US tariffs reflect the reverse results of the deal, especially the implementation of a 15% all-inclusive tariff cap. This comes as European stocks hit a 3-week low as investors focused on the impact of the new tariffs. The pan-European Stoxx 600 fell around 1% in early trading, down for the third straight session and on track to end the week in red. Peter, what do you think that these tariffs are going to have on stock markets, even though, as you said, the European have a relatively good deal in the grand scheme of things in comparison to some other major trading partners with the United States. We've obviously seen a loss of confidence in that regard. How do you analyse this?
Well, you know, it's going to shake in confidence again. Let's not forget that just a few months ago, the markets, the global markets, were under lots of strain, and many of them, in the States, we lost over 20% at one time. That is the indices. And so this is going to rekindle uncertainties again, and probably a loss of confidence. Now, do I think we have a major drop on our hands? No, because as I said before, I think that this rekindling of hefty tariffs will eventually bring all, if not all, but most of the nations to the table and renegotiate. So I think the market is aware of that, but you have to also think that that the markets are very pricey at this time. They are priced to perfection, and so any uncertainty regarding, not only regarding tariffs, but whatever may arouse, may rise, is a threat to the market's stability. Are we headed for a steep decline? I don't think so. Could we see a pullback? Most likely.
Yes, Peter, thank you very much. You are staying with us once again. We move on to some more economic news. Cambodia's vital garment and footwear industries have been safeguarded by a 19% tariff on exports to the United States. The move follows a long negotiation led by Cambodia's Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chanthol, who thanked President Donald Trump for his support in reducing the original tariff of 49%, one of the world's highest. Listen in to what the Deputy Prime Minister had to say.
យើងនឹងអាចថែរក្សារោងចក្រនៅកម្ពុជាយើងហើយនឹងពង្រីករោងចក្រដែលមានស្រាប់នេះឲ្យរីកបន្ថែមទៀតទាក់ទាញអ្នកវិនិយោគឲ្យមកដាក់ទុនថែមទៀតដើម្បីផលប្រយោជន៍របស់ជាតិយើងគឺការបង្កើតការងារជូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋក៏បន្តចរចាធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យបានទាបជាង 19% ទៅលើតំណែងមួយចំនួនដែលជាតំណែងអតិភិបរបស់កម្ពុជាយើងដែលបង្កើតការងារបាន1លាននាក់ជូនបងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋធ្វើជាពិសេសជាស្ត្រីក្នុង1លាននាក់នេះហើយម្នាក់គាត់ជួយគ្រួសារគាត់4ទៅ5នាក់ជាវិស័យដ៏សំខាន់
The tariff cut is crucial, with the garment sector being the country's largest economic driver, supporting nearly 1 million workers. Cambodia also signed a deal to purchase 10 Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft for its national carrier, Air Cambodia. The agreement, which will be finalised very soon, ensures continued trade and economic growth for the country. We are once again joined by Peter Cardillo. Peter, how do you analyse the transactions in these trade deals? How does it do to the US economy, and how does it benefit the countries for when they buy certain goods? We've seen a lot of air jets, etc. Investment in the American economy as well has to be finalised before these deals are signed. What are your thoughts on this deal-making strategy that Donald Trump pushes?
Well, I mean, that's the whole purpose of trying to get people nations to invest in the United States. So, you know, he uses that as a tool. Invest with me and, you know, you have a better trade deal. So it's actually positive for the United States, and also to a certain degree positive for the nation that is cooperating with the United States or investing in the United States. So to a certain degree, it's a win-win situation. And of course, everyone wants to try to save jobs. That's the aim of this thing. Again, it goes back to what I've been saying and what I said at the beginning of the program, that these tactics should align nations to negotiate and invest more in the United States and become a friendlier trading partner.
Yes, Peter Cardillo, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. As always, pleasure to have you. We now move over to Europe, where Germany says it will soon deliver 2 new Patriot air defence systems to Ukraine. The German Defence Minister confirmed funding will come directly from Berlin. A deal with the US Pentagon ensures Germany will be first in line to receive the latest Patriot systems in exchange for sending its current stock to Kyiv. The move comes as Ukraine continues to defend itself against Russian airstrikes. Germany has already supplied Kyiv with 2 Patriot systems in the past. This latest support marks a further boost to Ukraine's air defence capabilities. We're now joined by a reporter for NewsX World and anchor Asuma Katauka. Asuma, what more can you tell us about this deal between Berlin and Kyiv?
Yes, earlier this month we saw that Defense Minister of Germany had a talk with US on 14 July, and US publicly disclosed that they will be supplying more weapons so that your EU or NATO allies of Ukraine can support Ukraine in its war against Russia in protecting itself. Since Russia has increased their attacks on Ukraine this summer, they have not disclosed how many Patriot systems will be provided to support Ukraine through Germany, but Germany has and US has voiced that they will be sending, and US said that it will be prioritizing delivering this system to Germany and to Ukraine through Germany, but they have not disclosed exactly how many and how much are the costs. So patriotic missile systems are currently only being made in US, and they have been in the war zone or been used in the war zone since 1980s. The cost is very high. It's around $1 billion, including the battery, and $400 million for its system, and $690 million for the missiles in the battery. So these numbers are according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The numbers and the exact cost is unclear, but this is the numbers that have been shown in media reports. So US will be providing, and NATO has, so Germany has voiced that this will not be affecting its commitments to NATO. Earlier this year, they voiced that Germany will be sending or upping their defense military cost or commitment towards NATO to 5% of their GDP. And German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has voiced that their support to including the Patriot missile towards Ukraine will not be affecting their commitment to NATO in any way. Rest assured, yes. That's all.
Yes, Asuma, thank you very much for that context and insight. We now move over to Africa for our next story, where the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have held their first talks after signing a peace deal to end decades of deadly conflict in mineral-rich eastern Congo. Eastern DRC, a region bordering Rwanda with abundant natural resources, has been plagued by violence for more than 3 decades, and the unrest has claimed thousands of lives. The agreement was held as a significant milestone by the African Union and the United States, and follows a long series of truces and ceasefires that have been systemically broken. The deal outlines provisions for the respect for territorial integrity and halting hostilities in eastern DRC, which are still, however, to be implemented. The deal reportedly includes economic measures, but has few details. According to the Congolese government and the UN, the violence has left thousands dead and exacerbated a humanitarian crisis for hundreds of thousands of displaced people. Rwanda denies providing military support to the M23, but says its security has long been threatened by armed groups, including the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. We're now joined by Dr. Charles Sinkala. He's an international relations expert located in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you very much, Dr. Sinkala, for joining us on the programme. Pleasure to have you. What is your view of the state of this ceasefire right now? Obviously, a ceasefire was agreed back in April of 2025. However, this went on and the M23 seized 2 villages outside peace talks in July just gone. What are your thoughts on how or if this peace deal is going to hold?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure always being invited on such a platform to discuss. My view on Democratic Republic of Congo and the Rwanda relations is that it has been very difficult, for all the peace agreements that have been established before the April 1 and before the January 1, 2025, and other peace accords which has been established between the two countries. And I think we have to go back as far as 1960, when Patrice Emery Lumumba was killed and replaced by Mobutu Sese Seko Kukumbendo Ngwazambanga. Through this time and processes, there's been a lot of conflicts between the DRC that has made it difficult for them to restore peace. But going to Rwanda and DRC peace talks, I think they have held nothing but just a talk show without any hope of them resolving. I think peace talks has to be done within the DRC as opposed to areas being hosted in Qatar or recently in the United States of America. Also, there is a point that we have to put into consideration that there is over 150 militia groups that are in DRC. Rwanda is just a small piece of participants, those who are protecting the Hutus that origins from Rwanda. And the focus should not merely be in terms of the peace to stabilize DRC by resolving the relations with Rwanda, but many other actors who are there in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes, Dr. Sinkala, there's been an estimated 2.5 million people displaced since the year of 2022. What more can you tell us about the humanitarian crisis that the conflict between the M23 rebels and DRC forces have caused?
Of course, indeed, there has been no statistics of more than 2.5 million people has been displaced, and DRC continues to produce asylum seekers. Not far away from DRC, there's Zambia, which had a Maeva refugee camp, which has been there since the early 80s, and many other African countries has already started issuing asylum seekers, especially South Africa, and many other parts, including the United States of America at one point. But now visa restrictions, they have said is too much. They can only hold such people who are displaced from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Many of them has been displaced, especially in the northern part, eastern part of Goma, where the conflict-torn zone, where there's mineral wealth and mineral rich in the DRC, that has been displaced, and they continue to do that because of the military contractors, who has been providing security and military support for those who are mining gold, diamond, whichever the minerals are up there. And it has become very difficult for them to work with the locals, as the locals feel that they need to be included, in terms of the mining and other activities that are happening. So the trend continues, and I think it will be very difficult at this stage, should the actors not be found to be part of the solution rather than what they're distracting. And also another point to note is the escalation of militant support in the Democratic Republic of Congo has done nothing but to exacerbate the regional conflicts within the areas, as armed groups have been armed instead of being disarmed.
Yes, Dr. Charles Sinkala, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Pleasure to have you on the programme. Well, that is all that we have time for this hour. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you for joining us.